Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Melanie Dizon, and I'm the Director of Education at the Davis Phinney Foundation, and I am here today with Amy Carlson, one of our absolutely most beloved ambassadors, and we're so excited to have you here today, Amy.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great.
Excellent. So we're going to actually talk to Amy today about something that she's been doing that is really helping her not only give back to the Parkinson's community, but help with her Parkinson's. It's a really neat story. So Amy, first of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, how you got to this work, how you became an ambassador, what you love about being an ambassador, and then this work that you're doing with Moth Radio.
All right. Well, okay, so I'm Amy Carlson, and I am an ambassador for the Davis Phinney Foundation. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's 8 years ago, and living with it pretty well ever since. And I would say that's because of the Davis Phinney Foundation. I love the philosophy, and I always have, that we're not too concerned or excited about worrying about a cure. We're much more concerned about today and what I can do today to live well and to be with this disease, because I think we all know that the cure is coming, but it's going to take a while to get there. And in the meantime, we want to take the best care of ourselves as we can. And that's been my philosophy. And I love the fact that Davis Phinney Foundation supports that, which is why I decided to apply to be an ambassador. And luckily I got accepted. It's the best program ever. I've got a built-in support network around the globe, but really mostly around the country. And friends I can talk to all the time who are, like me, interested in being positive and advocating. And that's what I do most. I love to advocate about Parkinson's. When I stopped working and I had to take care of my Parkinson's full time, it was very hard for me. And by embracing becoming an advocate for the disease and people with the disease, gosh, that's really helped me out a lot, because it's given me something to really focus on that's positive. And so that's what I really love about being a Davis Phinney Foundation ambassador, is the idea of just doing something. I'm doing something about the situation that I'm in, and it's a positive thing. As far as the Moth goes, I've been a storyteller all my life. I love to tell stories. I love to listen to stories. I love to read stories. And there's this radio show called Moth Radio, and it's put on by NPR. And it's just people telling their stories. And I've been listening to it for a long time. And I didn't really understand where they got their stories from until a friend of mine in LA said, well, they do them at these slams. You should go to a slam and you should tell your story. And so I went to one. And what a slam is it's basically like a gathering of people. We usually gather at a bar or some type of lounge. There's like 200 people there. You pay $15 to get in, and you can do one of three things. You can just be in the audience and listen to stories, which is really absolutely fun, because you get to listen to 10 stories. Each story is 5 minutes each. And the stories are like uncurated. You just get what you get, and it can sometimes be crazy, and all the stories are great. I've never had a really bad story. There have been some that I've been like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person's saying this. But at the same time, I've never had a bad time at a Moth event. So you pay to get in and just watch the stories. Well, you can also do one other thing. You can put your name in the hat to be one of the storytellers. And like I said, it's not curated. There's no like qualifications to be a storyteller. You just put your name in the hat. And if they pick you, you go up and you tell your story. And you better be ready, because it's a little bit pressure cooker. But that's what I love about it for me and my Parkinson's, is that I prep a story, and then I have 5 minutes in front of the mic where I have no notes. There's 200 people listening. There's lights on, camera roll, and you're telling your story. And that's a great test to see if you can still talk intelligently and intelligibly to people. And for me, it's a great challenge. And so I go, and I've been picked 3 times now to tell my story, and they judge the story. So that's the other thing you can do if you go to a Moth event. If you've been to one before, that's all you have to do to qualify to be a judge. So the judges, they even laugh about it, are completely untrained, and they're just people in the crowd, and they're basically voting for which is the best story that they heard. And so it's like a night of being with a bunch of people you don't know, 200 people you don't know, and you're all telling stories to each other and you're judging each other. It's a strange event, but it's lovely community building type event. And it's a way to understand who your neighbors are and who the people are in your community. And so I had the idea of going and telling my Parkinson's story. And so I went to my first slam in November, and my parents went with me, and my daughter went with me, and my husband. And we had never been to one before. And I put my name in the hat. and then they pick the people one at a time. Okay, so they pick the first speaker, and that person gets up and tells their story. And then then that person picks the next person out of the hat, and then that person tells their story. And in between each story, the judges give them scores. Well, I put my name in the hat.
You mean like the Olympics, like they do?
Yeah, like they hold out numbers.
Okay. Oh my
like,
gosh,
you got a 7.8. You know.
Right.
And so, so I'm sitting there and I'm listening to these stories, and my eyes are getting wider, and I'm going, "What did I do? Why did I put my name in the hat? These people are amazing. I don't want to tell my story. I'm going to be a flop." And I told my husband at intermission, after 5 stories, they take a break, and then they go to the next 5 stories. And at intermission, I'm like, "I don't think I can do this." And my husband's like, "Yeah, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And besides, you haven't been picked yet. You probably won't be picked. There's a lot of people in the hat." I was picked last. So I ended up speaking last that night. And it was such a rush and so exciting to tell my story. And what was even better was it was not perfect. I did not tell a perfect story. I stumbled a million times, but people really liked my story. I did, tons of people came up to me afterwards and really thanked me for sharing my experience with them. And I think that's the neatest thing. The Moth audience, they're all there. They want to hear a story. So they're already supportive of your storytelling nature. And they're really a positive crowd. And they're really interested in hearing about people's life experiences, especially if there's something different than their own. And so I'd encourage anybody with Parkinson's to go out there and do a Moth event, because it's so exciting. And that first time, I actually placed second that night, which just absolutely blew me away.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was a lot of fun.
So have you created a different 5-minute talk for every time you go?
Every time I go, I do a new story. And I think that's actually, I don't know if that's a rule, but that's kind of the spirit of things.
Because you go to the same place, the same
place. Well, there's 2 places in LA. So there's one place in Santa Monica and then there's another place up in LA proper. And they have very different vibes. One's like, very chill beach crowd, more wealthy people because it's Santa Monica. And then the other place is a little bit more down and dirty city. And so it's a whole different environment, but basically you're going to the same place, same kind of people, the same guy produces them. So I see the same guy every time. And we just have so much fun. I've spoken at 3 now. I've told stories at 3. And 2 were Parkinson's stories, and 1 was a non-Parkinson's story. My husband challenged me to tell a story that was not Parkinson's related.
What was it about?
It was about my daughter. My daughter is adopted from Russia, and she and I went back to Russia in 2012. Actually, the year I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, we went back to Russia to go to her orphanage and visit where she had been born and to try to find her birth mother. And it was ultimately that story of trying to find her birth mother that I told that night. And apparently it really resonated. And I did an okay job of telling it.
Good. So what do you think is, you said you get a rush, it's really fun, you love the community. How do you think it is beneficial for somebody with Parkinson's, first of all, to do that, to kind of, get the excitement and energy and confidence to do it, but also the value of telling the story? What do you think is helpful there?
Oh my gosh, so much. First of all, if you're doing storytelling and you're going to tell a story for 5 minutes, you're going to practice it, which means that you're going to be using your voice and projecting and making sure that you sound intelligible, so people can understand you. You really have to work on your enunciation and be very thoughtful about that. You have to work on your projection, because even though there's a microphone, if you speak too softly, it's not going to pick you up. And so you're going to want to practice all that. Well, just practicing that is such good work for us and our voices and our, you know, the whole thing with swallowing and everything that goes on with talking with Parkinson's. So first of all, at the bare minimum, just the practice of telling stories is really good for continuing to focus on good communication with verbally. The other thing is you have to work on facial expressions. You can't, I mean, if you're telling a story and you have that masking going on, it's not going to come across. So you have to work on forcing the facial expressions. You know, sometimes it's hard, but you can do it if you think about it. So by practicing your story, you're practicing how to, you know, make yourself have facial expressions and gesture, even though maybe that doesn't come easy. So these are all good things to practice and to become comfortable with. Beyond that, it's a great cognitive challenge because we're talking about a 5-minute talk, no notes. So you're putting together a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it matches the theme of the night. I forgot to mention that there's a theme. And you have to be able to do it in 5 minutes. They'll blow a little whistle at the 5-minute mark, and then you got 30 seconds to wrap up.
Have you ever had a whistle blown at you?
Oh, all the time. Every time. I tell the story and I'm like, okay, I've got it down to 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And then I get up there and I ramble. And every single time they blow the whistle. And the first time, the time I placed second, I absolutely went over. And I know I was downgraded for that. But since then, I've done better at keeping it within the time. But it's hard. You're up there and you're like, oh, I had this in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And now they're blowing the whistle and I'm not done, you know?
Right.
But so it's a great cognitive challenge because it's just something that's not, you know, you don't run into as much in your daily life. Maybe you were into it when you were working, but maybe you don't have that as much now. So it's a way to kind of simulate that. The other thing I find is every time I go up there on stage at the Moth, you get really excited. And so your tremors up and some of your symptoms come up. And so keeping that in mind while you're trying to tell your story and being able to control the symptoms and to be able to stand up there with confidence, even though you're tremoring, it's good for your soul to let people see you that way and it be okay. I mean, every single time I've talked, I've been tremoring and all kinds of stuff. And nobody has ever said that I looked horrible. In fact, right. They always say things like, wow, you're really brave and I'm glad you got up there. You made me feel good about myself. And people tell you all kinds of things afterwards about their own challenges. And for me, it makes me feel so good to know that I'm inspiring other people. And I can't tell you, no, it's just been a really positive experience.
Great. And I would think that it's just, you know, the nights after or days after, you're just kind of still riding that and it translates into all of your life, right?
Right. And the interesting thing is that this is how they curate their stories for the radio show. Now, I don't know if I'll ever be on the radio or not, but basically, I mean, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm like, who came up with this? They have a radio show and all the content they get is free. And people actually pay to give them content. And then they curate all that content and they choose what they're going to put on the radio. So there's a possibility that if you go out there and tell your story, you might be on the radio. And that's kind of cool too.
Yeah. So are these events all over the country?
They are. There's events in most major cities. I think every state has at least one event somewhere. And in California, there's a slew of them. But if you go to themoth.org, that's where you can see what events are happening. And if they are happening in your community, they typically happen on a monthly basis. So you can kind of look ahead and see what you want to involve in. And you can go to them too. It's really exciting. And like I said, it's a great way for people with Parkinson's to tell their story and raise awareness.
Yeah, I think this would be a really cool thing for like maybe a support group. You guys all go together.
Right.
And maybe one person wants to try one night and you give each other support and you can practice with each other. And
right.
That would be really neat.
That actually happened the last time, because I've been talking this up, I actually attend an acting class for people with neurological challenges here in Pasadena. And I've been talking about the Moth at class enough that people were excited. And so 4 of us went to the last slam. I was the only one who put my name in. Everybody else just wanted to see one. And I got picked that night. So it was really awesome to have my friends in the audience supporting me, and they were so excited to see me on stage. It was a really fun experience. And now everybody is like, I'm going back, I'm gonna do it. And it's a neat also to then work on our stories with each other and hear each other's stories and help each other kind of, you know, work through the story. It's another kind of therapeutic way of accepting the idea of Parkinson's in your life by, you know, telling your story. It's a great way to become okay with your story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that you were just first night, you're like, I'm putting my name in. I'm just going for it. It was great.
And that, I gotta be honest, Mel, that is the Parkinson's. In my old life, my pre-Parkinson's life, I never would have done that. But now it's kind of like, hey, you know, there are worse things that can happen to you than failing on stage. You could get Parkinson's disease.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, it's like, it kind of gives me permission to try things that, you know, maybe would have scared me before. And it's like, no, I know it's scary. This is not it. And it's given me permission to do some pretty exciting things. And I look at that as a gift from Parkinson's to me. So.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Amy. I'm definitely going to share this with our community, and I'm going to put the moth.org up so everybody looks into it. I definitely want to go myself. So I think.
Oh, one last thing. If you win a slam, you get to go to a grand slam. So I have that coming up. Eventually I'll be in a grand slam, and everybody who's speaking that night is a winner.
Oh, wow.
So it's a bigger event, a bigger venue, and the tickets are cost more. So whenever that happens, I'll let you know.
Yeah, let us know. And I think I might have you do one of your sample talks for us.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
I would love to.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Amy.
Thanks.